I think it's fair to say that the sanctions that the administration announced last night were lighter than they could have been. However, as far as investor sentiment is concerned, we look at more of the directional trends rather than the sanctions themselves. And just actually this morning, Volkswagen announced that they're pausing on the decision to open their latest factory in Turkey, which was going to be quite a big investment. And so if this becomes an ESG concern for a lot of the corporates, that's actually a more serious concern for the Turkish economy in the longer term. Now the sanctions, the question is, how will they sanction Turkey through Congress if this is not enough? Because I frankly think that the noise that we are hearing right now is also as much about local US politics and the kind of focus on the impeachment of Trump and what that news cycle kind of creates as much as what Turkey is doing right now.
So creating noise elsewhere to distract.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting point. Steve raised that earlier on in the show. And we were talking about also the vacuum that this has created in the region and how President Putin, who's, it's his first time visiting this region, visiting the Gulf in more than a decade. What does it mean for him to be stepping up his role here now?
Look, I think Putin is enjoying the opportunity that has been provided to him. And that creates a dangerous kind of geopolitical game in the country, because effectively Turkish forces are now prospectively facing an Assad military that is backed by Russia. So I think Putin is going to play this to kind of further strengthen his hand in geopolitical matters in the Middle East. What I find remarkable is that, well, the way we see it, the way I see it, is that what Turkey is doing there right now is a legitimate exercise to kind of create a border to stop the terrorist factions of the Syrian Kurds coming into the country. Now, Russia has been bombing Syria since 2015, and yet we've never heard this much noise about sanctions on Russia. So I think Putin is enjoying this because it gives him some sort of leverage to use in the future in the region.
Is President Erdogan weakened domestically at the moment? I mentioned earlier on about AK party popularity. We know what happened in Istanbul in June as well. I'm hearing respected internationally recognized Turkish politicians such as Ali Babacan being critical of the AK party as well, of course, which he was part of the government of as well. Is Mr. Erdogan waning in his powers?
Look, up until this event, I would have said yes, but that's fundamentally driven by the state of the Turkish economy more than anything else. I think we discussed in our last program a few months ago that the Turkish economy has problems, and that those problems will kind of, I think, magnify before they get alleviated, which needs reforms. However, if you have to focus on this specific excursion to Syria, this will increase Erdogan's popularity in the country, because one factor that a lot of people miss out is, as Turks, we have lived for the past 35 years with a significant terrorist threat from PKK, which is recognized as the international terrorist organization. That, by the way, is synonymous, unfortunately, with YPG. So as far as Turks are concerned, this excursion will unify Turks, whether they're AKP, CHP, Babacan or not, behind President Erdogan, locally.
And on the economy, I mean, it's fair to say clearly there are problems and we need reforms, but we'd almost, before this, got to a stage where central banks could start taking back on rates, and the currency hadn't responded that negatively from memory. So before this had happened, it looked like maybe we were starting to move out of that. Do you think this now just puts more pressure, downward pressure on the currency, investment flows, as you mentioned earlier? Investment
flows, absolutely. Now Turkey, as a part of the crisis that has been going through, has ironically become much more a dollarized economy. So I think what you've seen over the past week and last days is the state banks kind of using that liquidity to shore up the lira. But you can't just buck the dollar. So I think we are seeing an element of a correction that reflects the real geopolitical risks on the country. Now, because Turkey, but let's also remember this, compared to what happened last year after the Brunson case, where the lira kind of went out, Turkish economy, ironically, is in a much stronger position than it was. It used to have a current account deficit, now has a current account surplus because the economy has slowed down. So from a lira perspective, I see the only real significant risk is if the US Congress imposes sanctions, probably utilizing the CAATSA sanctions to go back to the whole S-400 purchases, and if they choose to penalize Turkey vis-a-vis the Turkish banks' access into US capital markets.
Hi, I'm Joanna Bersecci, and thank you for watching. You can check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more from CNBC International. Thank you for watching.